knowledge by which we can make things happen for ourselves. Little did my father know that from his office I had picked up the Holy Geeta with the commentary of Swami Chinmayananda, and I was reading it, and ever since I started from the beginning, the introduction that he has given about the Bhagavad Gita, I could not stop reading it. But can you imagine what must be those times when he sought this knowledge? And when I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, this is 1980, that I had to actually hide and read the Bhagavad Gita, because I would be laughed at. And I was secretly reading the Bhagavad Gita, not realizing that if I found it in my father's office, my father himself was reading it, but didn't appear to be a man of religion, but of great service to humanity. And he tells me, come listen to this sadhu. If I was in India and somebody told me to come and listen to a sadhu baba, for us sadhu baba are boogeymen, kidnappers. And I went to listen to him, and whatever my father told me about this great person, I knew that no exaggerations also would be able to describe, to indicate one of the greatest phenomenal saints, sages of our time. I remember going first and sitting in his session. It was an auditorium, and here was this man which I am seeing at a great distance as a small little figure, but his voice, his presence was larger than life itself. And as he spoke from the dais, the clarity with which he explained some of the most subtle ideas of the Bhagavad Gita, the very essence, grain of our philosophy and culture. There were statements that many of us would hear from our grandparents, aunts, and have been brought up in that culture. The simple life wisdoms would so beautifully be passed on by grandparents, parents to children, and it was not difficult to accept these subtle ideas. But with the type of education we get these days, and the type of education and scenario that many of us have faced in our country, that even though we got freedom from those who colonized us, our minds still remain colonized, even till today. How important it was that at such times where those wisdom that knowledge that was passed down from Sri Krishna, from Ved Vyasa, from Shankaracharya, and it became the very grain or the culture of the country, that people did follow with either simple understanding or even with belief. But the type of education that we were given, and not everything about it is bad, but the type of education that was given to us and which has spread around the world, that we do not question what they want us to believe, but what they do not want us to believe, we question. As we've heard from yesterday, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Whenever there is a decline of dharma, and the causes of decline are many. Shankaracharya, in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, has pointed out that when the people live a life of mere sensuality, selfishness, taking more than what they produce, it is because of that dharma, people are not interested in dharma, they do not see the value of dharma. And when people are not ready to live a life of sacrifice and service, producing more than what they consume and giving more than what they take, in such societies, dharma declines. And where dharma declines, adharma begins to rise. And where adharma begins to rise, difficulties, problems, sorrows may come in different ways, but the effect on the masses is the same, that people lose that spirit of sharing, that spirit of growth, the confidence to aspire and make a difference, and to be not just independent from another country, but to be independent in our thinking. And when Bhagavan says, Sambhavami Yuge Yuge, and as we said yesterday, that as per the need of the time, this land of Bharat has brought up a son or a daughter, a child of this country, to re-establish dharma, and it had to be done the way it is required at that time. As we have seen yesterday and this morning also, that Ramchandra ji fought the battle to bring Sita back to Bharat. When a highly materialistic person, sensuous person, a highly materialistic and sensuous society not only usurp other people's land, women, but even steal away the culture, steal away that samskriti, and particularly that which arises from the self-knowledge that the self in me is the self in everyone. All that we have been saying so far. Ramchandra ji went and fought directly. Shri Krishna who has also fought many battles. But until and unless the Arjunas of that time could rise above their emotions and their confusions and be clear about their duties and not be a slave to the whims and fancies and emotions of their mind. Not that Arjuna did not know the purpose of the war that was taking place, but how much confusion had come in regarding dharma, that even Arjuna as a warrior was confused and thinks that action, and especially such horrible actions as a war, will bind me, and is ready to let loose the society under the control of those stealers, looters, abusers, rather than fight the battle and think that I am the cause and I will commit sin and I will have to suffer. But not, and my people will die, but not questioning what is my role, my responsibility, and who is my larger family. When every person in society is like this, during Ramchandraji's time, Ravan had kidnapped many people, stolen many people's things. Even the mighty people like Bali, Sahasrabhahu, others, who defeated him, but then became his ally and became his friend. And Bhagwan Ramchandraji, not finding human beings to be able to stand up against such adharma and adharmic people, set an example by using the forest dwellers, even animals, to fight against adharma and set an example, but made them fight. Here Shri Krishna gave that knowledge to Arjuna so that the strong, the mighty, the educated people of that time know their duties and perform their duties clearly. Then only dharma can be established. During Shankaracharya's time, this morning we told you that the proper understanding of our books of knowledge, our source of knowledge, had been interpreted, misinterpreted, used, abused, with very small thinking, each one propagating their ideologies and even distorting the meanings of the words of the Shruti. He went length and breadth of the country, and his work to re-establish dharma was not necessarily to fight a war or a battle, or even to stop invaders, because that was not the problem of that time. The problem of that time is Arjuna's confusion was what is right and wrong, whether it should fight or not fight, what is my duty. He was no longer clear. Here there were people propagating different theories, different philosophies, and that Vedic philosophy of the one indivisible truth, in whose knowledge alone can there be peace, harmony, dharma. He wanted to show that the theme of the Upanishads, our Indian knowledge systems, when the world was undergoing change, and even before the country was to be attacked with many more different religions, ideologies, etc., where my God is the only God and one God, to bring back and revive the Vedic philosophy that divinity manifests everywhere. There is not only one God, but God alone is, and there is nothing other than God. That Vedic knowledge, that knowledge of the Upanishads, which clearly says Ekameva Advitiya Brahma Ishavasyam Idam Sarvam, Tat Tvameva Tat. And yet, how many dualistic philosophies, etc., had emerged. And such philosophies, when people are confused, like even today, that time it was about the philosophy, and therefore he went length and breadth of the country, debating, arguing with the authority of the scriptures, with sheer logic. He was able to prove many of them wrong and re-established the Vedic Dharma and the practices that was in it. And one thing we must be very clear, the Semitic, or let us, in general we say Western, but today we'll have to say modern, way of thinking is that in uniformity there is unity. In uniformity, there is unity. And therefore, if everybody follows my God, everybody follows the same ideology, everybody follows the same, everybody dresses the same, everybody pretty much wears the same beard, turban, etc. Everybody puts the tika or a mala in a particular manner, then we will have unity. But the fact of life is that no two leaves are identical with each other. They may be similar. But our rishis understood very well how to go beyond this veil of Maya that creates diversity, and in midst of the diversity to see that golden thread that binds all the different pearls of necklaces, of pearls in a necklace together. To see unity in diversity is the very crux of our Indian knowledge systems. And therefore, in midst of so many cosmic forces that the Westerners translated it as gods, we not only see that one infinite God in all the forms and through all the forms, including our mother, our father, Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, in the saints, sages, in fact, anyone who comes to us at our doorstep as an Athithi, to be able to see God in them also and take the opportunity to serve and make it into your worship. This way of thinking, this mindset, that is the very basis of our Indian knowledge systems, the very basis of our Veda, of Sanatan Dharma, that in a land where every 20 kilometers we have a different dialect, different food, different sambars. Yeah. Different dress, different shades of colors, different, not dialects, but even different languages. How did this country, with such variety, with such differences, could remain united by one culture, even though there were many kings? And India was not just from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, not just from Burma to Afghanistan, but the whole of southern China, Vietnam, Laos, Indonesia, up till even Iran and even Russia was united by one culture, one knowledge system. And not only was India divided into various pieces, when after independence, what continued, what was started before independence to colonize our minds, that we would not be able to one day even understand that unity in diversity. That how in so many devatas we can see that one God. And not only in devatas, but to see in every creature that one God. Where there is no difference of kafir, kufr, blasphemer, but to be able to see that one indivisible truth. And as long as we understand the truth, truth can be expressed in many languages, in many different ways, for different types of people, and thus we had so many Upanishads but speaking the same truth. So many masters, rishis and saints and sages speaking the same truth. And can you imagine that before that decline had reached its rock bottom, Bhagwan knows who to bring forth. And what a name also, Balakrishna. Separated from his mother from childhood, brought up by an aunt like Yashoda, full of energy and therefore mischievous, yet helpful and delightful, that even those whom you seem to tease and trouble speak of him so fondly that as much as he would tease us, he would be mischievous, but if we were ever ill or sick, he would go out of the way to look after his younger sisters, his brothers, even his friends. And you can see that how those traits of being helpful, being energetic, being dynamic, and even though seems to be an agnostic or a questioning or a defiant person, the defiance of such people is not because they want to argue and prove their point, but because they want to know. Once Gurudev was asked the question by youngsters, why did you become a Swami? Of course, he started with his very famous, hilarious story that people want to hear, that how his heart was broken and therefore he became a Swami. But that was only a joke. But telling the teenagers that when whatever I aimed for, whatever goals I set for myself, and I achieved it, I asked myself this question, and therefore such an introspective person. I asked myself this question. Gurudev would tell them, would tell all youngsters, I asked myself this question, that after having gained that which I thought would give me happiness, am I happier than before? And he says, when I was honest with myself, I had attained success. I had even gained popularity. I would have a very comfortable, luxurious life. But I asked myself this question. Gurudev told the youngsters that having achieved whatever I wanted to achieve, was I happier than before? Was I more complete, or was I complete? And searching for these questions, I went to the Himalayas. Not so much to expose the Swamis there, because there are many also, the impressions that we have. But understand that Gurudev was brought up in that same education system in which we are brainwashed. And unfortunately, we still have to continue that. That anything that comes from the West, including science, even vaccination, we blindly believe in it. And our spiritual knowledge, which is so logical, without thinking, we reject it. So do all these great masters go through these phases. Whether it was Narendra or whether it was Balakrishna Menon. And they become fit instruments of the Lord to make the change. He questioned all the forms of worship. He questioned, but not to defy, but to know. Obviously, he was not an atheist. But like any youngster, even today, and even when we were growing up, it is fashionable to say that I am atheist. I don't believe in God. You're ready to take the cover of science and just blindly say that science doesn't believe in God. Science is all about evolution. He also went through that whole process. And therefore, as I said, the Lord sees a fitting personality of that time, brought up with that same mindset that limits us in the understanding of our dharma. In fact, we not only reject, but as you can see, how people just blindly, without knowing the scriptures, without knowing our religion, without knowing our dharma, foolishly reject the best part of our culture and afterwards live a life of sheer slavery to foreign ideologies. Balakrishna Menon, when he read the books and when he went to Swami Shivanandaji Maharaj and realized that what a noble life these sadhus live, of constant service, of peace, joy, happiness, sharing. And when inquired into the source of that inspiration, the source of that knowledge that makes you live such a fulfilling life, even as a sannyasi, with no possessions whatsoever, and what you can do for society, he was so inspired. And then after reaching the feet of his Gyan Guru, Swami Taponji Maharaj, with the blessings of Swami Shivanandaji Maharaj, when he got this knowledge, few people could live in those conditions at that time. Few people could go through the strict discipline and tapas that Swami Taponji Maharaj lived in. Few people could sit and listen to just pure Brahma Vidya with no jokes. Yeah. With maybe no elaborate examples, but straightforward. And when he gained this knowledge from such a great Brahmagyani, and I have seen those letters, they are there in our archives. And if you go the Chinmaya website and archive website, that letter is also there, and I had a chance to read it out, where he clearly writes that when I would sit with all these scholars, pandits, even sadhus, on the rocks of the dry bed of Ganga, who had stopped inquiring and questioning, and even as his young mind would ask questions, very often he was shut down by saying, "This is the truth, just follow it." Or would explain in that manner which would confuse a person more. We all hear that he sat on the banks of the river Ganga And like Swami Vivekananda, who sat at Kanyakumari on the rock, inquiring what should be the purpose of my life after having gained this knowledge, it is not just sitting on the rock that this inspiration of Gyan Yagyas came to his mind. He writes very clearly in his letter that listening to all these people, I sat in wonderment and recognized, why is it that youngsters like me did not find our religion appealing, did not get answers to our questions? One, the way we think these days. The other, these people who are men of knowledge, scholaristic, but do not know how to relate and how to communicate this knowledge to a modern inquiring mind. People proudly say that Gurudev taught to the educated masses in English. That even Swami Vivekananda did. Maybe not the Upanishads in depth. But his contribution was far greater than speaking in English to the educated masses who were influencing the country, who were ruling the country, who would be the diplomats, etc. Besides that, the avatar is that person who at that time is relevant for that time, and how he understood not only the language, when we say Angla Bhasha Viduttama, that language which did not even have a rich vocabulary, meant only for commercial trade, not even like the classical language of Greek as well as Latin. In that language, which was limiting our mindset, he was able to communicate this knowledge in a language, in the mindset, in a way that it becomes our knowledge. And only when it is our understanding and our knowledge can we actually live or practice. I bring you back from where I started, that the very first talk when I went to listen to him as a 19-year-old teenager, at least I can say I heard as a teenager. Yeah? I had heard this statement, and just to give you a glimpse of how he brought that same timeless knowledge of the Upanishads, which Sri Krishna and Vedvyasa brought as the Bhagavad Gita, which Shankaracharya commented to make it very clear for the people of his times without confusion. How was he able to communicate that knowledge? When I was in college and I started reading spiritual books, every uncle and auntie who finds out, or even in the building, everybody is a family, no? Who want to give away, and I feel very guilty to, discard spiritual books. And those days we used to have cassettes, spiritual talks on cassettes. Yeah. They would just give it to someone whom they thought was interested. So they heard that I am interested and gave me the cassette of those, that time very popular, every time there is some trending, very popular, person. So gave me the cassette of that person. And I'm listening to that person. Statements are made, statements that we have been hearing from childhood, but which can be so badly misunderstood and even sometimes misinterpreted by these people for their convenience to get popularity. Because people like to hear what they want to hear. People want a sanction of spirituality for their sensuality. And he was making a statement which we've heard from childhood, we've heard our elders repeat, which appears to be sensible, but if we start inquiring on those statements, they will appear ridiculous to us. And with the mindset that we have today, we would not be able to even reconcile that it is any way sensible. One statement which he made, that karne karane wala Bhagwan hai. Everything is done by Bhagwan. He is the karta. Everything is done by Bhagwan, everything is done by God. Why do you think you are the doer? Good or bad, everything is done by God. And this is how he explained and went, and there was not much more explanation. I, who have heard this statement from childhood, who had accepted that the knowledge that we have in our religion because we were taught by people who lived it, like our grandparents. They just had to make statements and we knew it was true. We didn't have to argue, and even if we questioned, in such simple words they would explain. But when I heard this, I was taught in a way, not directly about these statements, that in our Hindu culture we don't accept anything blindly, nor do we reject anything blindly. I heard the statement, I didn't reject it because I didn't have the answer to what its meaning would be. Because I asked myself, if everything is done by God, then why do I suffer? It's nice that I give credit to what I did good to God and be humble. But do I blame God for my wrong actions? And if wrong actions are done by God, then why do I suffer? This was the statement that was there lurking in my mind. And look, this is what is called as divine will. The very first talk I go to listen to Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda, he's speaking on the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Bhagwan says, all this is created by me, but know that I am not the doer. All this is created by me. All the different types of people are created by me, but I am not the doer. That statement is not told for us to inquire how everything is from the Lord. Nothing is created without the Lord, good, bad, ugly, or even evil. Yet Bhagwan says, I am not the doer. Everything created by me and I am not the doer. And what a master sat there in front of me with such clarity that inquiring youngster just knew that this person knows what he is speaking. Doesn't just make statements. However, from whichever authoritative source it may be, but can explain in such a manner, with such clarity, that even people with our mindset can understand. And how beautifully explained with one simple example. He says, God is like the petrol in the car. God is like the petrol in the car. Without the petrol, the car cannot move. Dam laga ke hayya karte jao. After 5 minutes, you will be tired. Without petrol, the car cannot move. But whether the car goes to the ditch or to the peak, whether the car goes to a bar or a temple, whether the car gets lost somewhere or meets with an accident or reaches safely home, it depends upon the driver. God is that consciousness in you without which your body, your senses, your mind, your intellect, with its famous BMI chart he showed, cannot function. And therefore, without consciousness, without God, ek patta bhi nahi hil sakta, not even a blade of grass nor a leaf can move. However, where the car goes, therefore some people are bekars. It's good. I don't have any car, I'm bekar. Where the car goes depends upon the driver, the vasanas of the driver. How clear that statement became, that without God, presence of God as consciousness, none of our equipments can function, nothing can be created. Yet, he is not the doer. Will you blame in the court if you met with an accident or you did hit someone? Then listen, it's the petrol that did it. No? And such a humorous style he would express, no? That would keep our attention captured. And that's how, through his Geeta Gyan Yagyas, with his Upanishads and his teachings, he was able to communicate this knowledge, which even in the scriptures is said that only qualified people, but his was, who are we to judge who is qualified? Because a qualified seeker will be brought by divine will to a qualified teacher and will gain this knowledge. And as I said, that when Bhagwan sees such a fit equipment, who in his knowledge and love for everyone has become empty like the bamboo reed, Bhagwan picks that bamboo reed through whom his breath flows as the song divine to the world. This is the manifestation of Bhagwan. This is the avatar. And once when I was asking Gurudev this question, in our Yuva Kendra classes, youth sessions, what type of questions the youth discuss? When in the youth classes we were discussing even about realization, that if a realized master has understood that the world is an illusion and has given up this ego and merged with the infinite, yeah, then kim icchan kasya kamaya shariram anusvanjaret. We didn't know that time Sanskrit or know these statements from the Upanishads and Panchadashi. But our question was, for what? Why would a great master, even if you say out of his fulfillment, out of his love, but the world does not exist for him, why would he or she come back to this world, as we may say, even to spread this knowledge, even to spread this dharma? Why? And I remember we were asking Gurudev this question, and Gurudev answered it at different levels so that we could understand. But levels is not the final truth. In a way, he was testing us. And every time he said an answer that appeared to be logical, we would question further, not to defy, but to clarify. And afterwards, Gurudev just paused and said, this creation is the phenomena in the infinite. It is Ishvara's creation. But the seeker, the meditator, one who knows the truth, that meditator has merged and gone. And from that empty equipment and looking at us, he says, my children, it is Narayana functioning through these equipments. It is Narayana functioning through these equipment. Many people heard some logic and walked away. But we had darshan of Narayana. Because he had said in some other talk that wherever there is a person whose ego is gone, the pure consciousness functions through that. And Ishvara says, now why should I become a child and again be beaten up? Let me just use this equipment. And therefore we said that in these men and women of realization, it is Narayana only who functions. It is Shankara only who functions. And it is very interesting to know the devotion of that one Ishvara who is seen by us as the creator, sustainer and dissolver, Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh. And out of that, Bhagwan Vishnu takes avatar because Dharma Samsthapana is his. While Shiva is Jnana Murti and therefore Dakshina Murti, and knowledge avatar is Shankara. And isn't it very interesting? Shivji always worships Rama, Krishna, Vishnu, and Rama, Krishna worship Shiva. Now you know whose avatar is who. Shankaracharya, Achyutam Keshavam Ramanarayanam. And Gurudev, Jagdishvara. whose Ishta is Jagdishwara. How interesting to see this Leela of Bhagwan. And tomorrow morning, the conclusion of this topic that Shri Krishna says, Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. And as we said, that this is not just a theory, a philosophy, but how we can realize it, that avatar within us. And Bhagwan has said in the Bhagavad Gita, and how Pujya Gurudev revealed that to us. That will be tomorrow's morning session. And evening, Pujya Guruji, who's already arrived, will be giving the concluding session of this Shankara in the evening. All of you do participate in the morning and in the evening for the conclusion, and of course our offering to his great grand vision of being a Yuga Purusha, and to both these great masters, Sri Adi Shankaracharya and Pujya Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda. The inauguration of our new campus of our university, which attempts to bring to the modern contemporary mind that mindset by which eventually we will be able to understand all the different knowledge systems of Bharat and bring Bharat back to its pristine glory to be the university of the world. And that is the great grand vision of these great masters. And they are Apta Kamaha, and they are Satya Sankalpa. And their Sankalpa, their vision has to manifest. And the impossible has already become possible. More of it I will speak tomorrow, to see how these great masters manifest for the world a new destiny by re-establishing Dharma. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.